Hi, Winnie. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, everybody. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about what happens when our life doesn't go as planned. When our life kind of goes off the rails. We had expected it to be a certain way, and then we get blindsided by a change that we have to make. And this might be a change that we didn't anticipate or we didn't want. And yet we're kind of forced to go in a new direction if we want to move forward in our lives. And I will issue a content warning here. I am going to talk about loss of a loved one and the grieving process a little bit in this video. So if those topics are too upsetting for you, you might not want to watch. But you might also find some ideas on how to move on. Now, I remember probably 20 years ago now, a neighbor of my parents lost his wife to breast cancer, and they had 4 little kids. The youngest was just an infant at the time. And I remember thinking, he never imagined he was going to be a single parent to those 4 kids. That must have been a life path that he just never would have even anticipated. And yet here he is now in this situation where he has to move forward with where he is and what he has. And how does somebody do that? How do you not just sit down in the middle of the road when something like that happens and you keep going? And I think for a lot of us, if we have responsibilities, they can keep us going. If we have obligations to other people we love, they can help keep us going. I also thought about this a few years ago when I was applying for, well, I say a few years ago, it was probably 12 years ago now, when I was applying for teaching jobs, and I interviewed for one that I really wanted badly and I thought I was going to get. It was a job in Chicago that it involved being in charge of the business department. I have an MBA as well as a PhD, and in developing relationships between the university and the community. And I thought that would be such a fantastic position for me. And I had several interviews for the position, and it came down to me and this man. And I was just so sure I was going to get it. I wanted it so badly. And I was imagining my life in Chicago, living near the city and all the things I would do and see. And they called me one day, and I thought, oh, this is the call to tell me that I got the job. And they were calling to tell me I did not get the job, which was unusual because you usually get a letter, a rejection letter. But these folks called me, and they said, we really liked you. We thought you had a lot to offer, but we've decided to go with the other candidate. And I was very professional on the phone. I said, well, thank you for letting me know, and it was nice to interact with all of you. And then as soon as I hung up the phone, I collapsed to the ground sobbing because I just felt like my life was over. I had reached a fork in the road that I had not wanted or planned on, and I couldn't imagine what the next step was or what it was going to look like. This happens so many times in our lives. Sometimes it's a relationship where we get blindsided that someone wants to end a relationship with us where we didn't see it coming at all. And you just can't imagine what the future is going to look like. It's just kind of a void. And I have been reading some books. I'm a big reader. If you know me, you know I churn through books. I love to read. In my office, I have bookcases full of books, and I remember having a student come in one time and look at them and say, "Have you read all of those?" Yeah, I have. But a couple of books that have really made an impression on me in this area of moving on from an emotional blow. One is called Option B. This is by Sheryl Sandberg, who is a former executive at Facebook. She also wrote a book called Lean In that you might have heard of. But in this book, you can see option B, and it has um, a brick with a balloon on it, so something very heavy to lift, right? And in this book, she talks about how her husband died unexpectedly, and he was probably in his early 40s. He had an aneurysm, and she had small children at the time. And the reason she titled the book Option B is because she came to realize that option A was no longer available to her, meaning that all of the things she had imagined and all the plans she had made were not available to her, and she was going to have to find a plan B or an option B for her life, and that was the only way she was ever going to be happy again or move forward, is to learn to embrace option B. And this idea really became clear to her when she was talking to a family friend about her daughter wanting to go to a father and daughter dance at school. And since daddy was no longer around, there was a family friend, a male family friend, who was willing to step in and take the place of dad and take the daughter to the father-daughter dance. And Sheryl Sandberg was saying, I don't want to have to do this to her. I want her to be able to go with her father, and I want her to be able to go with Dave. And this family friend told her that, well, option A is not available. Dave isn't here to take her, so I know I'm option B, but I'm happy to take her and make sure she has a good time. And this was what really brought it home to her, that she was going to have to learn to live with option B. Maybe not to fully embrace it for a while, because that process can take a long time. But if she was going to keep putting one foot in front of the other in her life, she was going to have to learn to appreciate the options that were available to her. Another fantastic story that I found was actually in this book. Maybe you should talk to someone. It's written by a therapist, and it's about her experiences being a therapist and her experiences going to therapy herself. But in this book, she recounts a story called Welcome to Holland. And she says this is an essay that was written by a woman named Emily Pearl Kingsley, who is the parent of a child with Down syndrome. So you can imagine when someone is expecting a baby, they have all these ideas about what it's going to be like, and then if the baby has some sort of problem or disability or challenge that is going to affect the way that you need to bring up this child and the provisions you need to make for this child, it's not what you had planned, it's not what you had anticipated, but there is no other choice than to move forward with those new conditions in your life. So this woman, Emily Pearl Kingsley, who wrote this essay called Welcome to Holland, it goes like this. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation trip to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and make your wonderful plans. The Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The flight attendant comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's been a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks, and you must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you would never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy, less flashy than Italy, but after you've been there for a while and you catch your breath, you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, Holland has tulips, Holland even has Rembrandts. I really liked that little essay because it reminds me that if we look around at what we have instead of dwelling in what we don't have, we can start to heal our hearts and we can start to appreciate what we are dealing with, even if it isn't what we had once anticipated. Another great saying that I picked up in one of my readings was, we have to let go of the fantasy of creating a better past. If we don't accept the notion that there's no such thing as a redo, much as we try to get our parents or siblings or partners to fix what happened years ago, our pasts will keep us stuck. How many times do we fantasize that things could have gone differently, that if only we could send ourselves back in time, we could make a different choice and things would have gone better? But that's not a productive way of thinking, and it's not a good place to dwell in mentally or emotionally. So the challenge of moving forward from a disappointment or a devastating loss is to absorb it and realize that it's going to continue to be a part of us. We're going to carry it with us wherever we go. Some of those hurts, they never really go away, but we can envelop them, we can take them in, we can add them to our life wisdom and move forward with them. Now, my mother passed away a little over a year ago, and losing your mom, you know, anybody will tell you that's a very difficult thing to move forward from. And I have no choice. I can't bring her back physically, but I am now someone who has lost their mother. That's part of what's been absorbed into my mind and heart, and it's made me a different person. In some ways, it's made me a more compassionate person, and it's given me a perspective from which I can help other people who are going through that. So I'm trying to embrace this new world, this new life that doesn't include my mother on a daily basis, because this is what I have now. This is my option B, to live in this world. And I remember waking up the next morning after she died and thinking, this is the first day of my life I've woken up without my mom being in the world. So it was the start of a new chapter of my life. And, is it better or worse? I don't think we can put those labels on it, but it is different. And if I'm going to live a happy and productive life, I need to find a way to appreciate aspects of this new world in which I find myself. Now, I would never recommend that anybody grapple with these things alone. We need social support in dealing with these losses, disappointments, and grief. And that's going to take different forms for all of us. Some people find that in family and friends. Some people find it in professional therapy. But whatever it is that you need, please seek that help. Please let people know. If people ask, are you all right? It's okay to say, you know what, I'm really not. And here's what might help me. Here's what you could do to help me. In our culture, we're raised to, be independent and be strong and to not need help. We think it's a weakness or character flaw to need help or ask for help. And I'm glad to see that in our culture we're embracing the idea of mental health more than ever before and realizing that we do live in community with others and we do need that help and social support sometimes. So I encourage you to seek that kind of support if you need it in order to embrace your own plan B, whatever that may be. I find that journaling also helps. That might not help everybody, but having a place where you can express your thoughts and feelings without anybody censoring you or telling you you're wrong. Sometimes in the act of writing, I work things out. I have insights that I hadn't seen before just in the process of writing things down, so that can help too. But what I wish for you is a happy and healthy future, and it will not be free of disappointment and loss because those are part of life. But I wish you the strength and the social support and the internal peace to be able to absorb the blows and move forward and to still be able to appreciate the things that life offers you now. I wish you a wonderful week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.